Hello, my name's Richard Ishida, and it was suggested that I give you a quick run through some of the tools that I produce on my site. Site is at r12a.github.io. Um, Here we are at the homepage. You can access some of the apps that I write from the homepage, the ones that I use more frequently. Or you can follow this link, apps, near the top, and that'll um, give you access to a whole bunch more. So I'm going to dash through this. There's a lot more than 20 minutes worth to say, but I'll give you the flavor. And one way to do that is to start, for example, with the character app. The character apps are mainly intended to help people create examples and bits of text when they're not familiar with the language concerned. There's just over 100 of these apps at the moment, and the number is growing regularly. So let's choose, for example, Bengali and see what we can do here. So one of the key benefits of using the character app is that it's very visual. So of course, I used to call these pickers, but and you can pick text like this, like you can in many other pickers. But there's other ways of getting at the information, and one of those is to look up characters by shape. And so if you click on S over here, you get a list of shapes, and if you click on one of those shapes, it will show you characters in the character set that look similar, and that's very useful sometimes in a language like Bengali, where some of those characters are very similar indeed. And then you can click on those and add them to the text area. In the case of Bengali, you also get a list here of conjuncts, which are based on that shape. So you can click on those too and get them into the text area. So being able to find things visually, even in Nastaliq text, is one of the things that I'm trying to add to most of these pickers. So you can click on here, you can look up the shape, but if you want to do this on steroids, you can use the type assist functionality. There's two main ways of doing that. By default, it's usually set up so that the characters in the character set are mapped to ASCII characters, which you can access from your keyboard. So if I type B-A-N-G-L-A, I get that. And if I type Bengali, which is a better example, I get this. And you'll see down here, just below the text box, you have alternatives popping up when there's more than one target mapped to a particular key. And you can click on these, or you can hit the number 2 on your keyboard to substitute one character for another as you go by. The other key way of entering text is to use the L command, which is for Latin characters. Let me show you the palette. By clicking on P, you can actually open up the palette that shows you the mappings from each ASCII character to the characters that you're going to have available as you type. So here I can type B-A, and then I can substitute that A with A, N-G-L-A, and I can substitute that A with a different A, and so on and so forth. You don't have to have that palette visible. You can turn it on and turn it off. And it exists for this T function as well. There's other ways of entering text. So you can use a mapping from IPA to the characters. You can use a mapping from the ISO transcription to the characters. There's another transcription method there. There's a keyboard, which is a regular Bengali keyboard. Let me take the panel away at this point, and you can just type in, what you're seeing here on the keyboard layout. So there's all ways of getting stuff into into the character app. You can enter stuff also by code point. So I could type 1, 2, 3, 4 and space 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. And those are Unicode code points. Let me get rid of the keyboard so you can see what I'm doing. And if you press return here, it'll actually insert those two code points into the text. Or not only insert, but you can overwrite the text by highlighting it first. Now, having got some text in there, in fact, let me just replace this with some sample text, which is available in all of the pickers. You can then, increase the font size. You can change the line height, and so on and so forth. And you can do some other things too. Let me give you an example. I'm going to whittle this down a bit so that it's easier to see. I'll put the font size up a bit. So this first grapheme here is actually a conjunct, and it's composed of 3 characters, the middle one of which is invisible. And let's suppose we don't want it to be a conjunct anymore. How do you get the virama in the middle out? It's a bit tricky. Normally, but one way to do it would be to say, okay, let's put spaces between all of these characters. And having done that, then it's easy to delete that virama character. And then you can cinch everything up down here at the bottom by clicking on delete white space. And there you have what you wanted to get to. There are other things that you can do to explore the text. I just clicked on this converter, which converts invisible characters to text. So you can see that we've got a zero width non-joiner in between those 2 characters, which wasn't obvious before. We can, close that back up and open it and close it at will. So yeah, there's a couple of things that you can do to manipulate the text or style it differently. Let's go back to, well, we'll just keep this small example here. Another thing that is very useful is you can say, okay, show me a bunch of system fonts for Mac, Windows, or Google, SIL, and other fonts. And here's a piece of text, and you can mouse over each of these font names, and you'll see that you get the font applied to the text. And that's really useful for seeing how fonts work and testing them out and so on and so forth. And you can add your own, so add more, and I'm going to put in my font, and if we say set, confirms that it's been set, and now you have that over here. Of course, when I mouse over that, I haven't got a font called my font, so it's actually going to put square boxes in to indicate that there's no glyph for that character in the font that I've selected. Oh, well, there's no font either. That's kind of useful. So let's set the font back to serif, Noto serif. What's next? So that's about input and about styling and manipulating the text a little bit. But what I use these things for most is analysis of text, particularly complex scripts where you can't really tell where one character starts and another one ends a lot of the time. So for example, let's take this bit of this word here. And if we click on Analyze Text, we get a breakdown character by character. We get IPA information down here for the regular IPA mappings. You get description of what it is. You get the transcription, in this case an ISO transcription, and so on and so forth. And you get combinations of characters that produce different unitary text units are described as well. So that's an analyze text. Another thing you can do is show code points. So this is showing code points for the whole word here. We can do that for a selection as well. And if you click on that it'll take you to more detailed information about the character that you were interested in. We'll see more of that later on. Analyze text shows code points. You can transliterate the information. Let's review the selection. Transliterate the information into a Latin form, and so on and so forth. Over here you have more functions. So one thing you can do is sort the characters. There you go. In fact, let me put the full example back in there, and we'll take the font down a bit so you can see a bit better. Okay, so sort characters. So that shows me all the characters that were in that sample sorted by Unicode order. Or you can say unique sort, which basically just takes one of each of those characters and puts them all in a Unicode order. And that's quite useful sometimes. And there's other conversions that you can do, such as converting to IPA. There we go. And here you can, if there's ambiguity, you can click on the thing that you want, and it'll automatically select that, and so on and so forth. And then you can put that stuff up into the text area, and so on and so forth. Let's get rid of those. What else have we got? Oh, one thing that may be useful for you, I should have shown you in terms of analyzing the text. If you have produced this list here, you can say list code points, and it'll produce a list of the code points names, and you can easily copy and paste that into whatever email you're writing or whatever. Okay, and there's more. There's lots more that you can do. If you're dealing with a bicameral script, there'll be a command up here that allows you to uppercase and lowercase stuff as well. But let me move on to the next thing, which is that we can connect this text with other apps, and as I do this, I will introduce those other apps. So one thing that's really useful is this find examples. So let me choose a character such as, they're all sort of connected. Let's choose this one here. And if I hit find examples, it opens a new window, and it shows me a whole bunch of examples, usually with IPA transcriptions and meaning that contain that character. And it doesn't have to be one character. You can search, for example, on those 3 characters. I don't know. Yeah, there is just one thing. If you take off the last one, you get 2 alternatives and so on. So in this particular case, there's 844 terms that you can search on. And you can search using regular expressions. Well, that one didn't work very well. But believe me, you can put a regular expression in here and it will find stuff as well. So that's a vocab lister. What's next? Over here, convert to escapes. So let's take that word there and convert it to escapes. And so this is our Unicode code converter. Here's our input, and it's automatically converted that into hex NCRs, decimal NCRs, Ruby, Perl escapes, percent encoding, and so on and so forth. So that's a standalone app, but it's tied into the other apps through these export links that we have. Unicode code converter. What's next? We can show this in Uniview. So that word appears here, and here's the list of the characters that we were dealing with, and we can click on that and we can get information about that character and find character properties and so on and so forth. Uniview again is another tool in its own right. and you can do all sorts of things with UniView. Let me give you a couple of examples. Well, one thing that's useful is you can see these characters in graphic form. It doesn't have to be graphics. You can turn the graphics off and use fonts. But it's very useful. For example, these are new fonts in Unicode 14. New scripts in Unicode 14, and there are images for each of those characters, and you can click on that and you get a larger one and find the information and so on and so forth. You can search for text, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll do a hex search and finds this character we've seen before. You can search in decimal. You can search for text such as alpha, alpha, and gives you 93 characters that have that text in their name or in their notes. Let's look for Arabic. In fact, the easiest way to do this is to do this. This is the Arabic block. And in the Arabic block, we can filter stuff, show us just the letters, show us the combining marks, numbers, punctuation, and so on. And then we can say, okay, there's the punctuation. Let's get rid of this for a second. Put that up here, and there it is. And then you can get a list of just those things. Alternatively, we could take the stuff that is not a combining mark, and we could do things like this. There's combining marks there. Oh, sorry, I should have done punctuation. But let's go with combining marks, and you can say make a list from the non-highlighted items, and then you can put those up into the text box. Well, there's a lot more that you can do with UniView, but I have to press on. So let's go back here. What else can we do? Analyze string gives you a bit more information about each of the characters. You can type whatever you want in here. It's a standalone app. List characters. We select the whole thing. List characters. Here's the input, and it sorts it into blocks. Unicode blocks, and these are unique characters only, the 26 unique Bengali characters out of 72 in total. Character usage. So here we've moved the unique set of characters from that input into this box here, and it tells us what languages those characters are used in. So here's the full stop, for example, is used in all of these languages. The character app, usage app is very useful if we type in Bengali here to find out what characters are needed for a particular language, and this is the set that we have currently in the database. Again, if you click on these, you will get some more detailed information about them. So that's the character usage app. What else have we got? Font lister. So here we list the text in a whole bunch of different system fonts, so you can compare them, and you can use it as standalone with all of these scripts. And then you can triage by categories, various types of category. This is general Unicode category, property characters. You've got line breaking categories. And indic categories, and so on and so forth. And yeah, and then we get to script notes. Okay, so this has put us in the middle of an index for the character that we had at the beginning of the selection. And from this index, you can get more information about how that character is used. Here's use in numeric counter styles. And the document that we're in at the moment is a document that tries to describe how the Bengali or Bangla script works. So we have a sample, we have usage history, we have an overview of basic features, then we have the index, which you came in by. We have a section on phonology, and then we get to a section on vowels that describes how the vowels work in Bengali and what they are and so on and so forth. You have a similar section for consonants and a whole bunch of information. Well, one of the things that's useful about consonants, for example, is a description of consonant clusters, what kinds they are and how they're made, and examples and examples and examples of how they work. One of the things that you may notice as I'm going through here is that if I mouse over a particular character, it will give me more detailed information about the use of that character. Whoops. Like that. If that gets annoying, you can turn that off here. Detail on mouse over, it turns it off. Get rid of that. You can also, for each of these examples, you can get a list of the code points involved, which again is useful for complex scripts to understand what it is that you're actually seeing. So we have all these sections that introduce the script itself and the characters, and then we move into another area where we have description of layout features for a particular script. So let's go to Tamil this time, and we'll have a quick look through that. So glyph shaping and positioning, various types of information there, not in depth. This is supposed to be an explainer and a summary. So I try to get over the concepts that are important in as few words as possible. Then we move into punctuation and inline features, and we give examples of how that works for Tamil. Then we have line and paragraph layout information, justification, line breaking, and so on and so forth, counters and styles, styling initials, and so on. So we ended up here actually with the thing that I created all these apps for. I write the apps for myself, and they are subject to change at any time. So please be patient. I write them so that I can develop these articles here and the information about the characters. Well, that was a bit of a whirlwind tour. There's plenty more to explore. There's lots of apps we haven't even talked about. So please go and have a look at the site, r12a.github.io, and have a look around, see what you think is interesting. Thank you for your time, and that's me done.